When I told my kids I planned to remarry, they sat me down and said, "You're too old to fall for gold diggers." What they didn't know? My fiancée wasn't after my money, but they definitely were. I made sure she got everything. Hey there. We're working hard to hit our first 1,000 subscribers. If you love true, emotional stories, hit that subscribe button. It helps more than you know. Now let's get into the story. I should have known the second Jack asked me to sit down for a serious talk that nothing good was coming. It was a Sunday afternoon, sunny, peaceful, one of those rare days when you believe the world might actually be kind. I just told my kids I was getting remarried. I figured they'd be happy for me. After all, it's been years since their mom passed. They'd seen how lonely I got. They were the ones who kept telling me to get back out there. I thought they'd be supportive. Instead, they ambushed me. Jack, 31, and Melanie, 29, sat across from me at my kitchen table like I was some confused nursing home patient. Jack even started with, "Dad, we love you." And when someone leads with that, you already know it's about to get ugly. Melanie twisted the knife. "We just think you're rushing into this because you're lonely. You're vulnerable, Dad. You're not thinking straight." Apparently, according to them, Emily, my fiancée, was a gold digger. Mind you, Emily's 42. She's a high school art teacher. She lives in a modest condo she bought herself years ago. She drives a 10-year-old car that rattles when you turn too sharp. She wears the same handbag she's had since we met. And not once, has she ever asked me for a single thing. But none of that mattered to Jack and Melanie. To them, Emily was too nice, too agreeable, too young, even though she's just 12 years younger than me. In their eyes, she had to be after something. Money. It always comes down to money. At first, I thought maybe they were just being protective. I mean, maybe from the outside, it looked suspicious. Retired man, small fortune tucked away, suddenly engaged to a woman he met through a volunteer program. But then Melanie said something that stuck in my ribs like a shard of glass. "You need to protect what's ours." Ours. Not yours, Dad. Ours. That's when the mask slipped. That's when I realized this wasn't about protecting me. This was about protecting their future payday. I didn't say anything right then. I just nodded along, letting them feel like they were guiding poor, foolish old Dad back onto the right path. But inside, something shifted. Because here's the thing they forgot. I might be older. I might have a few more gray hairs than I did 10 years ago. But I'm not stupid. And if they thought I was going to just roll over and let them control the next chapter of my life, they were in for a rude awakening. After that talk, things got weird. The kind of weird you feel in your gut before you can put a name to it. Suddenly, Jack and Melanie were around more. Jack swung by just to check in on Saturday mornings. The same son who used to text me twice a month, and only when he needed something. Melanie invited me to lunch twice in 1 week. All smiles, like she hadn't once called Emily a thread in lipstick. At first, I tried to see the good in it. Maybe they were trying to be better. Maybe confronting them had shaken something loose. Then came the conversations. Always casual. Always offhand. "Jack? Hey, Dad. Not to be nosy, but you ever think about doing a prenup? Just smart, with how things are these days." "Melanie, estate planning is so important now. Especially when you're older. Wouldn't want your stuff tied up in court if something happened to you, right?" It was never about me. It was always about the stuff. At one point, Melanie even slipped a brochure across the table at Olive Garden, all laminated and glossy, about setting up living trusts to protect family wealth. She said it like she was handing me a coupon for half-off breadsticks. Meanwhile, Emily and I, we were just happy. Simple, boring, easy. We spent Saturdays doing crossword puzzles on the porch. Grocery shopping turned into laughing fits when she couldn't reach something on the top shelf. Money? It didn't come up. Not once. Not even when I tried to bring it up, jokingly, testing the waters. One night, sitting on the couch, I asked her, "Marrying me means you're signing up for my cluttered garage and my weird late-night popcorn habits, right?" She just laughed and said, "If I wanted your garage, I'd have stolen it already." No hesitation. No hunger. No agenda. Just Emily. Which made what my kids were doing all the more obvious and all the more sickening. Still, part of me wanted to believe I was being paranoid. That maybe they were just worried. That maybe I was reading too much into it. That hope lasted about 3 weeks. Because then Jack made a mistake. A big one. It happened on a Friday night. Jack invited me to his buddy's backyard barbecue. One of those last-minute, "Hey, you should swing by" texts that felt a little too casual. But I went. I figured, maybe he was trying. Maybe things were getting better. The house was packed. Loud music, too much cheap beer, paper plates bending under the weight of ribs, and potato salad. It was one of those nights that smelled like wet grass and cheap cigars. At first, it was good. Familiar. Jack introduced me around, bragged about me a little, about my career, my old Corvette, the fact that I still beat him at golf last month. But around beer number 4, the conversation shifted. Jack got loose. Sloppy. I was standing a few feet away, sipping a soda, trying to pace myself, when I heard him laughing with a couple of his buddies. Nah, man, seriously, Jack said, smirking, give it a year. Tops. Once Dad croaks, that house is mine. He clinked his bottle against his buddies and added, I've already picked out the furniture. They laughed. Laughed. About me. About my home. About my life. It felt like someone poured cold water down my spine. But it didn't stop there. Another buddy, I think his name was Kyle, joked, better hope the new chick doesn't get half first. And Jack, my son, grinned and said, nah, she's temporary. Dad just needed someone to keep him company. He'll wake up eventually. Family gets everything. Always does. Family. Family who saw me as nothing but a set of keys and a bank account. I didn't say anything that night. Didn't cause a scene. I just smiled, made an excuse about an early morning, and left. But on the drive home, gripping the steering wheel so tight my knuckles went white, it finally hit me. They weren't scared Emily would hurt me. They were scared she'd block their path to cashing out. And that wasn't even the worst of it. The next morning, Melanie accidentally confirmed everything. I guess she didn't know Jack had gotten drunk enough to spill the beans, because she called me bright and early, full of concern. She kept steering the conversation toward just making sure your will is updated to reflect your real family. Real family. Like love comes with a price tag. Like loyalty comes with a ledger. And somewhere in the middle of that conversation, I heard her boyfriend in the background, laughing about how Melanie already has her eyes on the lake house. The lake house I built with my own 2 hands. The one my late wife had loved. The one I planned to give to someone who actually cherished memories, not square footage. By the end of that day, something inside me shifted. For good. Jack and Melanie weren't protecting me. They weren't looking out for my future. They were looking out for their inheritance. And if they thought they had it locked down, if they thought they could bully me out of a second chance at happiness, they had another thing coming. Because I had a plan now. And this time, I wouldn't say a word about it until it was too late. The thing about betrayal, real betrayal, is that it doesn't make you want to scream. It makes you cold. It makes you calculated. After that weekend, I stopped second-guessing myself. I stopped hoping Jack and Melanie would come around. I stopped pretending they loved me more than they loved what I could give them. I spent the next few weeks doing what I do best, working quietly. First, I called my lawyer. Not the family one my kids knew about, no. I found someone new, sharp, unconnected. A woman named Teresa who specialized in exactly the kind of discreet asset protection rich families only wish they knew about. Over 2 long meetings, I laid it all out. How my kids were circling like vultures. How Emily had never asked for a dime. How I wanted to protect what I had and give it to the person who deserved it. Teresa didn't blink. She just nodded, took notes, and said, let's make sure they don't see a penny more than you want them to. Music to my ears. Here's what we set up. Living trust. All my properties, the main house, the lake house, even a small rental I'd forgotten about, quietly shifted into a trust with Emily as the sole trustee after my passing. Separate accounts. I moved my cash assets into new accounts under the trust's name, protected by layers of documentation my kids would never be able to untangle. Life insurance. I increased my policy and named Emily as the beneficiary. The kids? Removed. No notice given. Final will. Emily inherits everything directly. Jack and Melanie each get $5,000. Enough that they can't contest it easily in court without looking greedy and ridiculous. I also left very specific instructions. No big announcement. No public changes. Keep it quiet. Until the time was right. I didn't tell Emily, either. She would have protested. She would have said it was too much. She would have worried about how it would look. And honestly, that's exactly why I did it. Because real love, the kind that sits beside you through hospital stays and boring Sunday afternoons and arguments about which way the toilet paper roll should face. That love doesn't come with dollar signs attached. And if my kids couldn't see that, they didn't deserve a piece of me at all. I wasn't angry anymore. Not really. By then, I was something sharper. Something heavier. I was patient. Because payback doesn't always have to be loud. Sometimes, it's just a signature on a piece of paper. A quiet line in a will. A future that slips through greedy fingers without a single warning. And trust me, Jack and Melanie, they had no idea the future they were counting on was already gone. It happened at brunch. Of course it did. Melanie had been pushing for it. Let's all get together, have a nice family meal before the wedding. Her voice syrupy sweet over the phone. Jack backed her up, acting like he was too busy to organize anything, but definitely dropping hints he'd show up. I knew what it was. One last opportunity to talk sense into me. One last shot to bully me before I made a mistake they couldn't unmake. They thought they still had time. They had no idea it was already too late. We met at a little bistro downtown. Neutral ground. Big windows, fresh flowers, overpriced coffee. The kind of place that makes you feel like maybe the world isn't so bad if you just squint hard enough. Emily was nervous. I could feel it in the way her hand tightened around her napkin. She didn't want a scene. She didn't want to fight. And that's exactly why she wasn't the one I was worried about. Jack showed up late, smelling like cologne and arrogance. Melanie was already there, picking at a salad she clearly didn't want. We ordered. We chatted. Small talk. Surface-level smiles. The whole thing was a polite lie wearing brunch clothes. Then, right as the coffee arrived, Jack leaned forward and said, "Dad, listen. We just want to make sure you're making the right choice. For all of us. For all of us." There it was again. That casual entitlement, like my life was a group project they all had to pass. Melanie nodded along, adding, "We just want to protect your legacy. You've worked so hard. You deserve to leave it to people who really care. People who really care. As in them." I sipped my coffee. Let the silence hang heavy. Let them squirm. Then I said, as calmly as if I were commenting on the weather, "Oh, that reminds me. I updated my will." The air changed. It was like dropping a lit match into a room full of gasoline. Jack's eyes sharpened. Melanie froze, her fork halfway to her mouth. "What? What do you mean?" she asked, voice too light, too forced. I shrugged, playing it casual. "Just updated some things. Made sure everything goes where it should when the time comes." Jack cleared his throat. "You mean, like, you protected everything? From mistakes?" Emily looked down at her plate. She had no idea what was coming either. Sweet woman thought I was about to tell them they were safe. That everything was normal. I didn't. I couldn't. Because normal had sailed a long time ago. I set down my coffee cup, looked both of my kids dead in the eye, and said, "It all goes to Emily now." You could have heard a pin drop. Even the waiter refilling water at the next table froze. Jack's face turned a shade of red I didn't know was physically possible. Melanie's mouth opened and closed like a dying fish. "You're joking," Jack said, voice tight. "You can't be serious," Melanie whispered. But I was. Dead serious. "Real family doesn't come with a price tag," I said quietly. "If it does, it's not family." Jack slammed his palm on the table, rattling the silverware. "You're throwing away everything for some woman who's using you," he snapped. "She's not your real family." Emily's eyes filled with tears, not because of the money, not because of the fight, but because she hated being the cause of this ugliness. I squeezed her hand under the table. "No," I said. "She's not my blood. But she's the one who stayed when you started counting my bank balance." Jack stormed out without paying his share of the bill. Melanie stayed just long enough to mutter something about how I was being brainwashed before she left too. Emily tried to apologize. I didn't let her. Because none of this was her fault. It was theirs. And honestly, watching them walk away felt less like a loss and more like finally letting go of a burden I should have dropped years ago. The wedding was small. Not because we couldn't afford a big one. God knows we could have rented a yacht and flown in a gospel choir if we'd wanted to. No, it was small because when you strip your life down to the people who actually care about you, not your wallet, the guest list gets short real fast. We got married under a huge oak tree in the park where Emily and I had our first date. It was just a handful of friends, a few old coworkers, and a minister who barely got through his speech because he kept getting choked up. It was simple. It was quiet. It was perfect. Jack and Melanie weren't there. They didn't RSVP. They didn't call. They didn't even send one of those half-hearted thinking of you texts people fire off when they're pretending to be better than they are. And you know what? It hurt less than I thought it would. I kept waiting for this big wave of grief to knock me down, for the regret to sneak in late at night and whisper that maybe I should have been a little more, maybe I should have kept a bridge or two unburnt. But it never came. Turns out when people show you what they really are, believing them doesn't hurt. It sets you free. About a month after the wedding, I got a letter in the mail. Certified. Formal. From a lawyer representing Jack and Melanie. It was a challenge to the will. They were contesting it, trying to argue that I wasn't of sound mind when I made the changes. That Emily had undue influence over me. That I was vulnerable and confused. I read the whole thing sitting on the back porch with a cold beer and Emily's head on my shoulder. And when I finished it, I laughed. Not a bitter laugh. Not a sad laugh. Just a quiet, tired laugh at how predictable it all was. Teresa, my lawyer, made short work of them. The documentation was airtight. The witnesses were lined up. Every meeting, every signature, every decision, all properly recorded, dated, filed. They didn't have a leg to stand on. They wasted a lot of money on that fight. Money they clearly didn't have, judging by the rushed GoFundMe Melanie's boyfriend tried to start later, some nonsense about unfair family betrayal. It didn't even raise enough to cover a bad lawyer's retainer fee. After that, things got quieter. No more texts. No more calls. No more forced birthday messages with obligatory smiley faces at the end. Just silence. And honestly, it's been good. Emily and I travel now. Not big, flashy trips. No Instagram bragging. Just small, wonderful weekends away. Little bed and breakfasts. Road trips with maps that don't have a destination circled. We take dumb selfies where neither of us looks good, but both of us look happy. We try new foods. We dance in kitchens. We live, not chained to the past, not waiting for anyone's approval. And every once in a while, when the house is too quiet or the night is too still, I think about Jack and Melanie. I hope they find their way back to something real someday. I really do. But they'll have to do it without my money, without my trust, without the easy handouts they used to count on like the sunrise. Because love without respect isn't love. It's a transaction. And me? I finally stopped being for sale. And that's the story. If you're still here, that means you're one of us. So go ahead, hit that subscribe button. I drop new chaos every single day, and trust me, tomorrow's story, it's even worse than this one.